Awesome. Hello, everyone. Great to have you all here. I guess we'll give it a couple minutes and then we'll get started. All right. Vincent, should we start?
Yeah, let's do this.
Awesome.
Maybe just kick off with a quick introduction. So, Hugo, you want to go first?
Yeah, absolutely. So nice to meet you all. My name's Hugo. I'm the CEO of Orchestra. Orchestra is the single pane of glass for easily building, running, and monitoring data pipelines and AI workflows. You might have seen some news in the data world this morning, which is that one orchestration company has acquired another orchestration company. That is like neither of those companies are us. So it's an exciting time. All eyes are on why what we're doing is super important. And on this webinar, we're going to be running through with our lovely partners Synogize, Vincent and Keith, about why like having an absolutely killer orchestrator is a way to tame the modern data stack. So great to have everyone here, and I will pass over to Vincent.
Thank you, Hugo. So my name is Vincent, one of the co-founders and director of Synogize. We are a professional service SI partners based out of Australia, both in Sydney and Melbourne. We specialize everything around data and AI implementation. We've been working with Hugo for a couple of months now, and Orchestra has been a pivotal tool for a lot of our customers, especially the ones that have embarked onto the modern data stack journey. And today is us trying to share a bit of what have we experienced from them, what are some of the problems that we heard from them, and how Orchestra has came to save their day. Essentially, I think that's kind of a bit of a sharing sessions that we want to get. Keith is going to partner this session with me. Keith is one of our lead engineers as well. And is also the very pivotal person on connecting us with Orchestra. I'll let Keith introduce himself.
Hi there, I'm Keith. Been with Synogize for approaching a year now. And I basically work in the data engineering analytics space. So I have been in the industry for 20 years. Have worked with a variety of tools and stacks, and essentially came across Orchestra last year when we were looking for specific types of tooling to suit some of our customers, and saw that it was a great tool that focuses on the orchestration space. And fast forward a few months, here we are with Hugo to talk about Orchestra.
Thank you. Thank you, Keith. Cool. Let me pull up the screen and quickly walk through who Synogize is. Bear with me for a second. Share my screen. You guys see my screen? Yeah, so just a quick rundown on who we are. So Synogize, we are a technology company that helps businesses with optimizing data usages, helping them with transforming any raw information into powerful, actionable insights. delivering them through AI, and also using tools that basically helps with accelerating their journey itself. Our mission is always to deliver quality data analytics and AI solution services, and we have a few offices based out of Australia, so Melbourne, Sydney, Brisbane, and a short presence in Malaysia as well. Some of the numbers that we have at the moment, so 20 plus years of unmatched expertise in around the data side, have been delivered together with a lot of our consultants, more than 1,000 plus projects, and some of the key clients that we have in there. The tech stacks that we operate, we are a modern data stack organization that is one of few that is a very considered tech agnostic. So we work across different technology stack. So the customers that we tend to engage so happen to be the ones that are also, and have an architecture stack that are fairly complex. And that's where Orchestra plays a very, very important role as well, because of that complexity of managing different toolings and having the problems of how to manage, control, and orchestrate the processes across different tooling. That itself forms a new problem that a lot of our customers did not think about when they implemented the best of breed approaches. And with Orchestra, we were able to demonstrate that there is actually a problem solution to every single problem. And for this ones here, Orchestra plays a very good role in there. So we'll talk a bit about that as well, and then we'll share a bit of our experience in there. Let me quickly. So today, what we want to share is something called. So we put together a topic to share with you. You can see. So the topic for today that we want to share is how we are actually taming the modern data stacks on Snowflake using Orchestra. So we use the word taming. It's becoming a bit of Wild Wild West, is what we're seeing. So modern data stacks, as we started to grow along our customers' journey, it's even though it's considered best of breed for every single components inside the modern data architecture. However, not every single tools are built to interoperate among themselves. So it started over time, when things when things becomes more and more complex, when solution becomes more and more complex, managing them and controlling them became a big of a nightmare for a lot of organizations to manage. So what happens over time is that as their data stacks grew, so is their headcount. So they needed a bigger team, they needed more engineers, supporting cast, etc., etc. So we tend to help them a lot on that space. However, it became a bit of a nuisance, and a lot of the work that is necessary in there are not really, value add. On top of that, a lot of the modern data solutions are what we call, from a commercial point of view, consumption-based as well. So when we run certain pipelines, etc., when they are not run optimizedly, or when something fails and we have to rerun those activities again, they tend to become a problem. And which for the customers, it wasn't really an optimized, effective approach. So they have been constantly seeking out for some other controlling mechanism which could allow them to run that. So things like, traditionally when we used to build our pipelines, has to be along the line of using scheduling mechanism, etc. However, it's not very automated nor effective, and it's not very much catering for failure. So those are some of the typical noises that we hear a lot of our customers complaining. What we will cover today is, the problems itself. What are some of the pain points when running a modern data stacks without an orchestration? And I'll pass it on to Keith, who will be sharing some success story as well on how he was able to eliminate a reporting lag before and after Orchestra. And then at the end, Hugo will be able to run through a quick demo as well. So, like we mentioned earlier, so even though it's a best of breed solutions in the modern data stacks, all these special tools that we are working towards, but one of the key challenges on all these tools is that they don't actually coordinate very well with each other. So they don't really share, I mean, unless they all operate under the same brand umbrella, it's very difficult for them to control a subsequent activity beyond each one after one of them completed their activity. So as an example, you got Fivetran supposedly, focusing on ingesting the pipelines. With Fivetran working with DPT, it's able potentially to transform some of the workloads. And then using schedule mechanism, we are able to trigger the activities that needs to be running in warehouses and subsequently have a Power BI solution, again, running off a schedule today that is, based off an estimated time frame when things will be completed. However, in an ideal situation, you want to have them all communicating to each other, meaning that, instead of having to run that by a particular time frame or schedule, we want them to be able to coordinate and orchestrate their workflows accordingly. And that's something that, when we talk about having a very efficient time frame, like when you have a very restricted amount of time, and handling failures, etc., it is a necessity. However, toolings today do not actually cater for that. The maintenance bit that they are very quickly came into, it's all about just, instead of having to spend a lot of time building more value-added work, a lot of access to data stacks becomes more and more complex. A lot of effort is actually spent on just running, monitoring, and chasing after failures. Day to day, a lot of the operational budget that was put aside to actually run solutions that is value add has not been used to cater for reruns and backfills. And the most common question asked is, is the data ready? And that has become the benchmark of what good looks like. As long as the data is ready, that's how good looks like. Whereas we want to focus more on the value-added work. We want to take away the operation unnecessariness outside of the process, where a lot of the effort needs to be the investment and spending should be focusing more on what adds more value to the businesses itself. So things like new data models, the businesses should be able to self-serve themselves. The data quality needs to be able to upkeep itself, and the time frame or duration of all these things needs to run has to be fairly optimized, and that can only happen if the whole process itself is fairly efficient.
Yeah, I'd love to add something here, if that's all right, Vincent. Something we've seen as like AI has just proliferated everywhere is that like the need for just doing stuff with data from the business has gone up like exponentially, be it people just trying to ask questions of the data or people trying to automate stuff, but equally like building like a secure, governed, reliable system that does data stuff, but also does AI stuff too, is now just like even more work for probably quite lean, quite, hard pressed like data platform teams. So, the bottleneck is even greater, right? Because you have an increase in pressure, increase in demand, but then, twice as much stuff to do. So, it's really exciting time for us and for tools like Orchestra, because they are such high leverage, so they can sort of help to alleviate some of that load. And yeah, I think it's especially true in enterprises because there you have executives that understand the benefits of AI and they want to sort of go after it. And they want it now, but obviously things take time in large organizations.
Yeah, just echoing on what Hugo is saying, right? Like AI has changed the perspective of what more is. At the moment, we've been constantly challenged to do more with less. In the world of AI, technically everything should be happening overnight, one day, a couple of minutes, you should be able to get things done. So, keep expanding more work while the team is remaining at the same size is becoming a common norm. And so like scaling up delivery is something that we've seen more and more frequent. However, the one among the whole total life cycle of data applications, delivery only forms a very early stages of that. Majority of the life cycle is actually on the usage and the consumption of that and the upkeep, etc., etc. So that's the one that at the moment there is not a lot of answers to that problem. So using AI to help optimizing the build that has been successfully implemented and presented. However, when it comes to using AI to successfully run that process today, is still not yet as efficient as it is. And one of the key reasons is there is just no tooling that is allowing those tools in the metadata world to be able to coordinate among themselves. And again, has always been a big ask from a customer. How can I implement AI like the way I'm doing it during the implementation phase to then also gain advantage on the running side? And the common questions there is like, I got more every time the speed of us implementing new solutions is then translated into the speed, the activity that needs the more and more domain that they need to support, right? And however, the scope of the supporting cast is not increasing. They are running with a flat headcount. They are now being trained to expect data at a faster pace, which means that you don't really have a lot of time to reruns and trigger for errors, etc. And all this upkeeping activity is just compounding as new applications are being built up. The challenges are keep compounding on its own. So this is kind of like what we are facing today from the majority of our customers who has started their journey maybe a year or two ago and now starting to see a lot more data presence within their organization. We'll share a success story with one of our recent customers with you guys, and I think I'll let Keith run through this one with you. Keith, can I pass this on to you?
Yep, thanks, Vincent. Let me just share the screen.
I can control it if you want.
Okay, sure. Could be easier. Let me just cancel that. Yeah, so essentially, we initially did a entire tool evaluation for a customer, and we basically started with foundations. And foundations really are around the core data platform, and we'll talk about how Orchestra helped with that bit. It's also probably important to note that the foundation was basically step one, right? They were getting started. And on top of the foundations of having the data platform and orchestration, they're looking also at uplifting governance and AI enablement. So again, it's a similar pattern of starting basically with your core fundamentals of having a platform that can ingest data, that has reliable refreshes, availability of data as well. And then you could basically mature into going into governance and stewardship, and finally being able to leverage all your assets through AI enablement. So the success story that we have is basically a construction organization that already had a traditional modern data stack with Fivetran for ingestion, dbt, Snowflake, and Power BI. These are best of breed tools which work excellently by themselves. However, the challenge you're having was, again, the whole end-to-end chain was fragmented and a bit disconnected. So for instance, when you think about this, right, initially what they had was DPT models being kicked off via Fivetran transforms on schedule. And then essentially you basically had Power BI models being refreshed on schedule as well. So essentially what would happen, right, is if you basically had a breakage in a certain area, then the control flow would be fairly manual, right? Manual triggering of refreshes, manual reruns, manual backfills were necessary, were needed. And essentially what it also resulted in was something that is very brittle when it comes to, I guess, scheduling, right? So they're quite limited to once a day refreshes. Once a day was already basically a good something that looked good at first glance, right? If you basically had a day without errors, without latency of the data, that was a good day. And as there are different domains that actually demanded more fresh data, as you can see, right, the domains they're looking at were specifically around construction, internal IT, warranty, and of course, business performance. And so as users basically demanded more timely data, the platform team was constrained to basically only once a day loads. And essentially what Orchestra did was provide an end-to-end, pipeline that changed all these things together. We can go to the next slide. So as you basically mentioned before Orchestra, you basically had very basic scheduling, disconnected pipelines, one for ingestion, one for transformation, and one for reporting refresh. So as you can basically see, the control flow was 3 distinct steps and stages. So if you basically had a breakage or an enhancement or a reload required, there's 3 places to look at things. There wasn't a centralized control plane where you could actually look at your end-to-end status and monitor everything in one place, right? And because everything would have been scheduled by time only, they basically had to be a little bit more conservative, right? To avoid overlaps, to ensure that transformations and loads were completed before subsequent steps, such as basically refreshing reports, would be kicked off. The models also ran quite heavily on full refreshes, and we're talking hundreds of DBT models over here. So that also put a lot of load on compute at the same time on time. Now, once Orchestra was actually put into place, you basically had a single coordinated workflow. So a lot of time was actually optimized. So there's less waiting between things, between steps. Things now were reorganized to be optimized by domain. And key models were also uplifted to running incrementally. Now, one thing to also note over here was the type of support that Orchestra product team itself also offered this particular customer. Power BI refresh was initially worked only for full refreshes within Orchestra, and there was a feature, enhancement to actually support full refreshes as well for incremental refreshes as well for Power BI. So that basically enabled more incremental loading and report refreshing with this particular customer. Let's probably go on to the next slide, please. So what did the team achieve? Actually, better runtime and cost optimizations rather than doing full refreshes and rather than basically looking at fixed and brittle time schedules. That you basically have a lot more flexibility over here. You're able to run at different, refresh frequencies. You now have a combined set of domains that run both full load and incremental loading. There is a lot of reduced data lag as well. And this is progressively being rolled out as well to future domains. All right, let's go on to the next bit. And once again, key thing over here to take note is that everything runs at one flow. Restartability, dealing with errors and troubleshooting, it's within a single control plane, right? Which makes things quite simplified for anyone who's actually building or running the entire orchestration pipeline. And essentially, that's been a huge help and uplift for the organization, and helps it with its journey to progressing from, having the fundamentals and foundations to going into more mature governance and AI enablement as well. All right, back to you, Vincent or Hugo, I guess.
Thanks, Keith. I'll pass it on to Hugo at the moment, and he's going to show us how this is actually working in real life. Hugo, over to you.
Amazing. Thank you very much. Awesome. So yeah, now we're just going to pop into like a very quick product demo, and we'll show you how you can set things up. in Orchestra. So let me share my screen and then we'll crack on. So we're actually going to play around with a new way of setting things up, which we're really proud of, and that is our AI agents. So we're going to call this our pipeline architect. And pipeline architect, the job of the architect is basically to do what anybody building a sort of data pipeline would do. So in this case, what we're going to do is we're going to say, hey, look, you have access to the relevant credentials or the tools we use in our organization, fetch the relevant IDs and build an end-to-end ELT pipeline. And in this case, you can also add in things like skills if you've got which you probably do, like more complicated guidelines for building pipelines than just a couple of sentences. But what I'll do is I'll add our Fivetran connection, and I'll also add our Snowflake connection. And I guess we can also add our Power BI connection. So I'm going to go ahead and create that. We can give this a nice little photo. And now I'll say, build me an Orchestra pipeline using the method engine for Fivetran to Snowflake task, doing EBT, and then to Power BI. Now, while we're doing that, I'll show you how you can sort of do things the old way, and then hopefully we'll have something on the other end that's running. So, like Keith and Vincent were saying, Orchestra is this central control plane for easily building, running, and monitoring all of your data pipelines, but also quite a lot of agentic flows. So you can see here that we've got all of our different integrations. If we just take the Snowflake one as an example, you can see that it's very straightforward to connect to different tools. This is using the legacy password. You shouldn't do that. You should use KeyPair. But the point to take away is that this is a central governed place where different people can have access to different integrations that can kind of do different things. The next step, I guess, would be to kind of build a pipeline. So let's take a look, and we can do this manually just to illustrate the process. So we'll do our end-to-end ETL pipeline on Snowflake. And essentially under the hood, what we have is a declarative syntax for building pipelines. So where you might be familiar with things like Apache Airflow, which is all Python based, you basically have a combination of declarative and Python syntax in Orchestra instead. So something which is quite interesting is that when it comes to Snowflake, you can basically run anything. And if you have a dbt project on Snowflake, you can do execute dbt project, my dbt project, and that will execute a dbt project on Snowflake. So it's really, really, really easy, really, really straightforward to set up, really straightforward to maintain. And when it comes to sort of refreshing our data sets, you can sort of add something in here as well. We'll add a cron trigger as well. So what this does is just trigger everything every day at 6 o'clock. And we can also set up alerting. So let's say you wanted to get failures going to Slack, or maybe Slack and Teams. You can add these as destinations here as well. So it's really, really straightforward. The beauty of all of this is that everything is controlled in code. So while we have Git control in Orchestra as well, I've got GitHub connected here. You could have GitLab, you could have Bitbucket. What the pipeline builder is going to do is it's going to generate this YAML file, which you can back in Git. It's also worth noting that if you did just want to run a Python script, Orchestra supports that as well. This is going to run a Python script in a separate container that is completely unrelated to the orchestration itself. So you kind of have like quite a nice separation of concerns. And again, like if you did want to run dbt either in Orchestra or even in dbt Cloud, you know, we support all of these as well. So for now, I'll just add like a dbt build step just to sort of illustrate. But yeah, that's basically how you'd set up an end-to-end pipeline. Now, if we go back to that agent, we can see that it's had a think about what it should do, and it's created something. So I can go ahead and click on this link, and we can see that we've basically done exactly the same thing. So the Orchestra AI has actually built a very similar end-to-end pipeline with the same kind of like the same structure that we had before. And that, you know, that is really it. Like from here, you know, it's very straightforward to kind of like run a pipeline. A lot of the benefit I think we find in a tool like Orchestra is that all of the monitoring and all of the metadata comes out of the box. So if you need to do things like monitor your runs or monitor like your data quality or even monitor how your sort of materializations and tests in dbt go over time, like all of this is out of the box as well. Another area where we're trying to help people save even more time is by running agents as part of pipelines. So if we take a look at this pipeline, we can see that it's been triggered by another pipeline. And under the hood, like we've basically said, we've got a failed pipeline, tell me how to fix it. And the agent has run as part of a pipeline, it's given us a summary. And if we wanted to, you know, create like a skill that, you know, was editing code, making a PR, like sending an alert to Slack, you know, that would all be possible as well. So it's really, really powerful. You know, you can trigger your sort of like pipeline doctor and have a failed pipeline. You can say something like, you know, hey, fix this pipeline. You can even say something like, using the Slack credential you have available to you, send us a summary using the Git credential, you know, fix the pipeline on a new branch if applicable. And the reason we're able to do all of that is because when it comes to the different agents that we can create, they kind of have like governed access to the different sort of integrations that Orchestra has access to anyway. So if you need to connect to Slack, you can give the agent access to Slack. If you need access to Git, you can give it access to Git. It's really, really simple. And there are quite a lot of nice, you know, nice infrastructure optimizations, like the fact that you have sessions stored automatically in Orchestra. You know, you can come back in and, you know, ask the agent to do something else and pick up a session. And it's really, really, really straightforward to do. But yeah, like I won't go into much more detail, but hopefully it gives you a sense for how easy and how much you can do with sort of like an agentic control plane that has orchestration as like a pretty core feature, but you know, lots of other ways to save people time doing busy work as well. I guess like Keith, Vincent, like how are you guys thinking about the sort of like agentic capabilities in the data stacks that you're working in?
We wish that this thing was there when we help our resi customer for sure. Would have been a lot easier.
Yeah. One thing, right, as well, right, is I actually use the pipeline builder agent as well, just for minor changes. Again, in natural language, right? Let's say adding a trigger, adding a sensor, adding a schedule. It's a one-liner, and the good thing is everything's back to Git, right? So there's always it's never a one-way door. It's always a two-way door. There's always there's always auditability and lineage and traceability. The other bit as well, which Hugo basically demonstrated earlier with a pipeline triggering a run agent. You're depending on what type of workflow your organization actually has, right? For instance, if you wanted to be a little bit more conservative, what you could actually have is basically an agent that actually made a change, and before doing any publishing, you could actually also have a human approval task, right? So Orchestra also supports human approval tasks, just in case you wanted to have a second look at any changes or outputs before things get committed, as an example. So again, when you think about this as an orchestration tool, the current workflows that you have, even manual steps, can be formalized with Orchestra itself as a tool. And the advantages that you have when formalizing any manual steps would be traceability, auditability. There's a log of everything as well. So it's really fantastic in that regard. And again, the types of steps that you discover can eventually be turned into, I guess, more automated flows or agentic flows in the future, right? As basically the teams get more comfortable or basically mature in developing and automating the workflows.
Yeah. Yeah, so the approval step that Keith was just talking about is this parameter here. So, let's say you had like a pipeline that's doing something that is potentially like a long running or expensive job, like a full refresh or like a backfill. You might want to have like an approval step first. So you might say like, hey, can you approve this backfill? And maybe you can put in like the names of the approvals here, and that will define who's able to approve this, and maybe that's something you do via Slack before you run the pipeline. And I know people probably have quite a lot of questions about how this is backed in Git. So this is kind of what a simple Orchestra repo might look like. There's more here than there needs to be, but I would draw your attention to like 3 folders. So the first folder is your folder for running like scripts that are maybe moving data to your warehouse or moving your data to like your data lake. Scripts that are like, maybe taking some data from your data lake and moving it out. They would normally live in like a folder like this. You probably have a folder for your for your sort of like DBT project, which would look a little bit like this. Again, like doesn't have to be a DBT project, could be like another transformation tool like Coalesce or what have you. Just make sure you're not using Snowflake tasks. And then like you basically have a folder for your Orchestra pipelines. And as we said before, like these are all just YAML files. So if we have a look at this one, which is called Coalesce Fivetran Power BI, you can see that all of the orchestration, all of the connectivity between those different tools, all the scheduling, all the alerting, it's handled in this really lean, easy to write, AI-friendly syntax that anybody can kind of understand. So yeah, that's what we got for you. And again, we can see here we've got like a new version of this pipeline. We've got a version 4, and again, like it's beginning to look a little bit more production ready. We can even see that we've got a Python task now instead of like a tool. So super flexible. Like flexibility is a big thing, right? Like I know when we were chatting to the sort of like shared customer, that they valued being able to potentially take the architecture in one direction or another. And like we're pretty unopinionated in terms of how people want to build. Like we want to give people that flexibility. That's why we have all these operators. So keeping that flexibility is really key. All right.
Thanks, Hugo. Should we
Thank
open the
you.
floor down for some questions and answers?
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, let's go. Anyone got any questions for myself, Hugo, or Keith?
Yeah, the chat is just in the bottom right. So if you press on the little dialog box, should have like an area where you can type questions. Okay, here we go. So hypothetically, pipelines and data requirements grow organically as demand increases. In the event that you would organically grow flows and pipelines, do you have the ability to trace if a database crashes, which reports and pipelines will be impacted as a quick view? Interesting. I like this one. Shall I take this one, Vincent?
Go ahead, Hugo.
Awesome. So this is a really, really great question, and one that we kind of will try to answer with the assets in the lineage. So something we didn't show you all is that like Orchestra automatically basically gathers all of the lineage and all of the metadata from your entire like data environment, let's say. So I'm gonna pick some Sigma dashboards here. This is like a report, but we can see that it depends on things like this, and we can trace the lineage all the way back. So because all of this information is available via the API, you could say something like, you could actually ask the agent what will happen if something fails. So if I go to my pipeline architect again, and I don't think I even need to give it access to the Sigma integration. I can say, let's say the customer's clean table crashes, and this wouldn't have to be like a table in Snowflake. It could be anything that's in your DAG. What Sigma reports are impacted. Use the assets table and the lineage. And because this agent could be used in like a sort of like pipeline, you could even say, you could even call this from Git and have it sort of perform like an impact analysis and add it to like a PR, which is pretty cool. So yeah, the short answer is yes. As a quick view, we probably want to do some optimizations there.
What we see when our customers try, and that's something that we didn't actually mention as well. So obviously, with the whole idea of getting Orchestra in was to having the orchestration to help them manage the pipelines. But what we see them use a lot frequently is not so much on the day-to-day running, because that's you set it up once, is when things are failing. So when things fail in the past, you tend to spend a lot of time needing to figure out which, even if you have like hundreds of pipelines in Snowflake running, figure out which one is the one that's actually failing and how to address it. And Orchestra has been used as a control plane where they could easily target specific flows that are failing, and through that, then get access directly onto the jobs itself, or whether it's store procedures or whether is it the DBT jobs that needs to be fixed. You essentially use this as a map for you to navigate instead of having to go to Snowflake or DBT itself and search for it individually. That's kind of like call it a byproduct of bonuses that the customer is able to get after implementing Orchestra.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, lineage is tough, but definitely a lot that can be done there. You're welcome. All right, any more for any more?
No, we are a very
Okay.
small crowd.
Yeah.
No, no more questions.
All right.
Cool. I think we can conclude the webinar. And if there's any questions or if there's any requests on wanting having a more dedicated demo on how this works together, happy please go ahead and contact myself, Hugo, or Keith. We're happy to schedule a session just to run you by. We can share a little bit more in depth what's actually being done and what are some of the challenges that you need to prepare yourself before embarking on this journey itself. Happy to share a lot more in details with that. Hugo, any last words?
Any last words? No last words. Final closing thoughts. Just like big thanks to everyone for joining. You can find us at getorchestra.io, and best way to keep updated is probably by following us on social media. So find us on LinkedIn. I'm Hugo Liu, and you can follow the Orchestra and the Synogize pages as well.
Thank you very much. Thanks for your time.
Awesome. Thank you so much, guys. Thanks everyone for joining.
Thanks all.
See you.
Bye.